Hello, my name is Craig Seibert, and this short web seminar is titled The U.S. Constitution, 5 Key Concepts Everyone Should Know. And if you're an international listener, please stay with us as we take a look at this key founding document for the United States of America and look at its concepts. 90% of today's Americans have never heard what you're about to hear. In the late 1700s, however, 90% of Americans had a basic understanding of the concepts in this web seminar. Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence, said this: "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." And so we hope as we look at these concepts, a new enthusiasm for freedom and understanding the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence will stir in the hearts and soul of the listeners. So the first concept that we want to talk about is the fact that the Declaration of Independence and U.S. Constitution work together. And there's actually a short web seminar on this topic, but to summarize, the Declaration of Independence serves as the charter or the purpose document for the United States, why the United States was founded and on the core principles on which it was founded. And then the U.S. Constitution serves as the bylaws for the United States. That is, it's our organizational document and how we'll govern ourselves. And so this is a key concept, that the Declaration and the Constitution work together, and that the Constitution acts on the principles and beliefs that are written in the Charter for the United States, that is, the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, of course, was signed July 4th, 1776. It was over 11 years later that the U.S. Constitution was pulled together, and this graphic is just simply to show the difference in size of the two documents, the Declaration being about 1,400 words long and the Constitution being about 4,500 words long. Finally, there's an additional part of the Constitution not shown here that was added shortly after the initial ratification or during it, and that is the Bill of Rights, and it is a concise listing of the rights of the citizens of the United States as well as the rights of the states, and there's 10 items in the Bill of Rights. Now, as a next step, let's take a look at understanding the basic structure of the main body of the Constitution. And here we show what is typically viewed by people as the first and main page. The first key concept is this: the total length of the United States Constitution is over 4,500 words. About 4,000 of these words describe how the three branches of government are to operate, and we'll take a look at that. And then another 400 words describe the relationship between the states and the process for making amendments to the Constitution. Here in this diagram, we show how these three branches of government are broken up, both by way of sequence, but also how much text of the Constitution is dedicated to each of the three branches. The first branch that's listed in the U.S. Constitution is the legislative branch, called Congress, and there's two parts of the legislative branch: the House of Representatives and the Senate, and they are identified in Article 1 of the Constitution and listed here. It's interesting to note that the House of Representatives is discussed first, then followed by the Senate. And as we'll discuss later, there's significance in this sequence in that the founders believed that the House of Representatives would be the slightly more powerful of the three branches because it was closest to the people. There would be a balance of powers, but the House of Representatives has some unique characteristics and responsibilities. The second branch of government that's listed is the executive branch, beginning down here and then up into this section here. The third branch of government is the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, and then the remaining part of the government or Constitution deals with the relationship between the states and the process for making amendments. What might be lost in this process, though, is the importance of the first 52 words. We've looked at the document as it's been bracketed in this fashion, but if you look at the first 52 words of the Constitution, you'll find that these are the most important. And the first 52 words are literally contained in this small box here. And so as you can see, by way of quantity of words, 52 words out of 4,500 is not many, and yet they're the most important words in the Constitution. They state the 6 core purposes for which the Constitution was written. These 6 core purposes serve to define and limit the remaining 4,450 words of the Constitution. And so these words are so important that they literally dictate what the rest of the Constitution should be guided by way of interpretation. And as I had said previously, this Constitution also is interpreted or built upon the Declaration of Independence. And so the flow would be from the Declaration to these 52 words, and those two things then in turn would interpret the rest of this document. Well, what do those first 52 words say? We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for common defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution. Now, for the sake of simplicity and clarity, let me reduce these even further so you can see the six aspects. We the people of the United States, in order to connect the states together, to establish justice, to ensure peace, to provide for defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure liberty now and in the future. These are the 6 aspects of what the rest of the Constitution is designed to support and to guide. Let me also note here that to promote the general welfare as it would have been understood in 1787 did not mean the modern government welfare programs of today. What that meant was to create a fair economic playing field that all parties that were citizens of the United States could have access to use their gifts, skills, abilities, and talents to pursue the dreams and goals that they had in life, but not the government handouts that we associate with welfare today. As I've said already, everything else in the Constitution is supposed to serve only these 6 purposes. As citizens of the United States, we need to memorize these first 52 words. What a difference it would make. Now let's move on and talk about the 3 branches of government and how they're designed to operate. As we take a look at the 3 branches of government, this will not be a detailed analysis. That could be a multiple hour-long course, but it should be an effective overview that'll give you a sense for how the branches operate and their roles and responsibilities. First, let's take a look at the legislative branch, Congress. And as we've already said, Congress has the most space dedicated in the Constitution for describing its roles and activities. And here are some of them. They're to borrow and coin money, to regulate commerce, to regulate immigration, to set up the post office and roads, to create an environment for good commerce, to maintain Army, Navy, and militias, to declare war, to conduct impeachments, to oversee the District of Columbia, and to make laws limited to the 6 purposes of the Constitution and these areas above. And you might want to make note of the fact here that there's 10 items on this list, and this is a summary list. There's actually a few nuanced more, but it'll give you a sense for the amount of responsibility. Next, the executive, the presidential office. As we've already seen, there's less space dedicated to that, and it's reflected in his responsibilities or her responsibilities. To be commander-in-chief, to appoint ambassadors, judges, and officers, to enforce the laws of the United States, to sign treaties and receive ambassadors, to grant pardons, and to give the State of the Union to Congress. And so you can see that this list of items is reduced to 6 rather than 10. Thirdly, the judicial branch, the Supreme Court. The smallest part of the Constitution dedicated to describing its functions, which include to take appeals from citizens, courts, and states, to make principled judgments, to ensure jury trials, and to uphold the Constitution. One thing that's worth noting here as you look at the 4th item on the list, to uphold the Constitution, it's a common mistake now to think that the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of what the Constitution says. but in fact how the Constitution is set up, all three branches are to uphold and to interpret the Constitution, not just the Supreme Court. Even at the founding, there was a great concern over the Supreme Court and possible judicial overreach or judicial tyranny because judges were appointed to life. And there was a feeling that the accountability judges might have or not have would allow them to encroach on the other two branches of the government over time. So concerned over this was even Jefferson at the founding said this: the Constitution is a mere thing of wax in the hands of the judiciary, which they may twist and shape into any form they please. And so as we look at the state of things today, it seems as if these concerns have manifested themselves. The balance of power over the court, interestingly enough, is that Congress actually has the responsibility for establishing the jurisdiction of the court. They can limit what the court can actually rule on, and then Congress also has the power to impeach judges when Congress feels like they're operating outside of constitutional bounds. So in summary of these three branches, Congress was designed to be just slightly more powerful in this balance of power concept because they were closest to the people, and that's the House and then the Senate. And as you saw in the constitutional flow, that first section dedicated to Congress has the House responsibilities listed first and then the Senate. And so even the layout of the Constitution bears out that fact. The President is powerful in war and in keeping the law. Otherwise, he plays kind of a medium role in the balance of power. And then the judiciary was designed to be the checks and balances on the other two branches, but designed to be least powerful with the least responsibilities because judges were in fact appointed for life, and they knew that there was grave concern there with the possibility of a creeping judiciary over time. The last thing we want to touch base on is the Bill of Rights and how it reaffirms and limits of the Constitution. And this is just a brief remark on the Bill of Rights, as there will be another web seminar dedicated to it in more detail. But the Bill of Rights has item 1, which I'll at least mention here, that says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's the whole separation of church and state debate that goes on today. That's not actually in the Constitution, but these words here of Congress's limitation of not making a law that establishes religion is actually the constitutional phrasing. And then in this first item of the Bill of Rights is also given the freedom of speech and freedom of press, although I don't have it in its original language here. What I want to make most note of here is Article 10 of the Bill of Rights, the 10th item on the list, and it says this: the powers not delegated to the United States are reserved for the states, respectively, or the people. So in other words, if the first 52 words don't define, or the first 52 words do define the limits and guides of how Congress, the President, and the judiciary should act, and then each of those branches of government have their list of responsibilities, but anything beyond that are responsibilities of either the states or ultimately the people themselves. On September 17, 1787, the United States Constitution was signed by 39 of the 55 delegates attending the Constitutional Convention. So now that you've heard this, why don't you be a difference maker? One key item is to know that the Declaration of Independence and Constitution are designed to work together. Ask people if they know how the Declaration of Independence and Constitution work together. If they don't, tell them. Also, ask people if they know the first 52 words of the Constitution that limits and guides the whole rest of the document. If they don't, share that with them. And so you can have a better understanding of the Constitution than 90% of Americans if you master these concepts by simply knowing these two concepts of how the two documents work together, and then the fact that the first 52 words of the Constitution form its core. Don't let others tell you what these documents mean when you can know it for yourself.